Hello and welcome to the Wheel of Crime podcast, the podcast that's ran by two ladies who play games, mumble profanities, and laugh way too often. Also, this podcast does cover topics of sensitive nature, and as such, listener discretion is advised.
Hello and welcome back to the Wheel of Crime podcast. My name is Jenn.
And my name is Emily. Yes, welcome to our first episode of our Christmas special month, our special Christmas month.
Of our holiday season.
Jingle, jingle, jingle. Yes, we have made it to another season, kind of. It still feels like Spooktober just ended, but you know what? These holidays do be coming up fast. Yes, I am very excited for this week's episode. It'll be interesting for sure, I think.
I think so too. We spun the wheel last week. If you didn't know, you should know, I hope. But we spun the wheel, and this week we're going to be talking about country crimes.
Yes, so with that, have you started with anything like Christmassy yet? Have you done any shopping or hung the decorations and roasted your chestnuts on an open fire?
I mean, to be completely honest with you, I started my Christmas shopping at the beginning of November, and I basically finished. I'm like done. I'm basically done, which is good because it's not even December yet, and we're done. We can just enjoy the vibes and focus on all the 5 million work things that I have to do, unfortunately. But I'm hoping that because the shopping's done, I can just, enjoy the vibes when I have time off of work.
Okay. See, I am with you on that page, kind of where so here's the thing. Usually I do my Christmas shopping in, the first, second week of December. But this year, I actually wasn't really feeling it. I had inspiration one day, and I was like, I'm just going to finish my Christmas shopping today. So then if there is anything extra that comes up later on where, I have to buy, an additional gift or something else comes up, then I can address it then and have the bulk of what I need to do done for now. So that's what I did.
That's really impressive, because I remember last year, and I don't think you started until, Christmas Eve.
Basically, I am a horrifically last-minute person when it comes to this kind of stuff. Because also, I'll get a lot of inspiration from, the internet. And then I'm like, ooh, I want to buy this, one thing off the internet. And then I, look at the date on the calendar, and it's, December 14th. And I'm like, will express shipping get something here in less than 10 days, right before Christmas? Maybe.
It's a gamble.
It's a gamble. So I didn't do that this year, just in the spirit of trying to be more prepared. And yeah, so I mean, like I said, my presents, they're shopped. My chestnuts roasted. My jingles are jangling, and I am ready for the season.
Oh, I feel like we should just get right on into the questions.
Yeah, I think so too. Let's get it. So, have you ever lived in the countryside, and would you ever live in the countryside?
No, I grew up in the city, and I'm a city girl. Even the city we grew up in was, a smaller city in, the prairies, and that's about as country as I ever want to get, to be honest.
Yeah. That's basically exactly what I thought you were going to say. From growing up with you, there's not a single thing about the countryside that has ever spoken to you, I'm pretty sure, in any facet. So I was like, I'm gonna be shaking in my boots if she's like, yeah, I want to retire in the country. I'd be like, first of all, you're full of shit. Second of all, where is Jenny? You have to be an alien.
Whoever has my other Apple Watch replaced me also.
Yeah. You should explain to the listeners what happened with your spooky Apple Watch story.
Oh, basically, last night I got disconnected from my iMessages, and I was like, that's weird. And it said a new Apple Watch was using my account, which I, for some reason, was like, oh, the Apple Watch that's on my wrist probably just, reconnected or something. But then I got home and realized I wasn't getting any of my messages and I couldn't use FaceTime. And I realized there was another Apple Watch that was not the one that I use that's connected. And I had to change all my passwords and log out, and I still don't know what this other fucking Apple Watch is. So that's so fun.
So basically, Jenny is maybe hacked on her Apple Watch currently. Still undecided. We're all, like I said, shaking in our boots for her. And yeah, I will need an update on if you figure out what's going on. I hope it's just that your old Apple Watch is like in a drawer somewhere and somehow turned on and decided it's gonna work again or something.
Who's to say? But would you indulge in the country life, Emily?
I, unlike Jenny, I was actually born in the countryside, basically. So I lived in the country until I was like 6 and then moved into the city. So like bulk of my life I've been a city girl. And just recently I moved to a country-esque place. I wouldn't say it's like the countryside, as I'm also not going to approximate my location just in case, once again. um, yeah, no, it's country-esque, but not like full country. It's like dipping your toes in the countryside. And so far I've been enjoying it. It is very different though. People, there's definitely a big difference in how people act in smaller communities versus the city, which is interesting so far. So yeah, I guess I've embraced it. Yeah, yeah. That's up. There's my answer.
Perfect. Well, let's spin for our next question then.
So, what's your opinion about country music?
Ooh, I basically only like Taylor Swift and Casey Musgraves country music, and that's about it. I am not a country music girl, but Casey does drop a bop, and Country Taylor was a vibe.
I was about to say, because I know that you were really into Country Taylor when we were kids, so I was like, okay, like she got started with it, but like I don't know if this is like a reoccurring theme in your life or not.
Definitely not. Definitely more of a pop girly.
Yeah. For myself, I've actually like hated country music for most of my life. like no thank you. But it's really grown on me actually in the last, I would say, like 2 or 3 years. It's funny actually because I had people ask me, they're like, oh my gosh, Emily, when you used to like go out all the time, you would never go to a country bar, and now if I am going out somewhere, I'm like, we gotta go to the country bar, just because I like the dancing more than like the meeting people aspect of going out. So I'm like, yeah, yeehaw, let's get
Yeehaw.
it. Right? So it's grown on me for sure, like I said, in the last 2 or 3 years. I don't mind it now. I'm still very selective. I will never be the kind of person who's like corn beer whiskey. But there you go.
There you go. Yeah, I'm not a country girly. I do not know if I really enjoy the country bar per se, but you do drag me out there every now and then.
Every now and again, it's nice to dip your toes into like country dancing every once in a while, because the vibes are always nice. It's not ever like you're never gonna walk into a country bar and think, wow, there's so many people like gyrating in here. That like doesn't happen usually, so that's always a nice thing.
It is a nice break from the sweaty boys that are usually at other clubs in the place we live.
Agreed. Well, let's get to our next question then. So what's your least favorite thing about the countryside?
I don't like how remote it is. I think that's one thing that people usually like about it, that like isolation, remoteness, kind of like the lack of hustle and bustle that you find in the city, but that's the thing I like the least about it. That's why I'm a city girl through and through. Like, I like the busyness of a city, and you don't get that in the country at all.
I know, I was thinking about it and I was like, if Jen was to ever like retire to like a country place, it would be basically like a like tourist town somewhere where you're like, oh, it's small but like hella busy all the time.
Pretty much. Pretty
Yeah.
much.
For me, I would say my least favorite thing about the countryside is just kind of a lack of resource and a lack of convenience, because there is something to be said for like if you're in like the mood for something, being able to like order something in, or like if you're having car troubles and you call a tow, it's like a 5 minute tow or like a 10 minute tow, versus a like hour long tow, or like traveling an hour to get a piece of pizza or anything like that. So at least for that part of it, I wouldn't really want to be like fully embedded in the countryside for that reason. But yeah, as for the other side of it, I don't really mind the quiet. Unlike you, I don't mind just being able to lock myself in my house and be like, yes, peace.
I find peace, like, I don't know.
You're like, if it's peaceful, it's deeply unsettling.
Yeah, I would be thriving in like New York City versus if I was like on a farm somewhere, I would be stressed. I would be
Yeah.
I would not be vibing. It would not be good. I'd be like, things are too quiet. There's a serial killer around the corner.
Yeah. You'd be like, get me out of this bug-filled prison and let me go to my street rats.
Exactly.
Basically. All right, we got one more question. Ready?
Ready.
So then, on the flip side of it, what is your favorite thing about the countryside?
Usually it's like very pretty scenery and like the sunsets are usually pretty nice. I'm not really a morning person, so I don't see sunrises that often. Nor do I want to. But sunsets, supreme.
I'm also not a sunrise person. Love me a good sunset. If I see the sunrise, it's way too early in the morning.
Agreed. If I'm up that early, I'm mad. You can guarantee it.
Absolutely, just livid. As soon as I see the sunrise, just rage fills my entire being, and I'm like, how dare you?
Pretty much.
Oh god. Yeah, no, for sure, like, scenery definitely is a big part of it, I think, because, like, cities can be nice for lots of reasons, but it's really hard to beat just being able to, like, look out on, like, a really, like on a mountain or like any of those other things. I think for me, my favorite thing about like anything having to do with the countryside is the being close to nature. I love the idea of being able to like wake up in the morning and look outside of your window and be like, oh look, the deer are mowing my lawn. What a whimsical thing to have happen to you.
That's what I like about Vancouver. I don't know. We have a lot more American listeners, so I don't know if any of them have been to Vancouver, British Columbia, not Washington. But you kind of get like the big city vibes, but you also get like these pockets of like weirdly like fully in nature. Like Stanley Park is like you could wander in there and not see anyone for like a long time and like just be in the forest. Or like go to the ocean and just sit on like one of the private beaches, you know, like you can find like little pockets of like a getaway while having the city.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot to be said for being able to have a little bit of both, where you have like a nice spot of nature to yourself, but then like you can still only take like a 5 minute drive and end up at a McDonald's or something.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I feel you with that one. That does sound really nice. Well, yeah, that's it for our like little country questions. And now I have a description for you.
Take it away, Em.
Country, also called country and western music, is a genre of popular music that originated with blues, church music such as Southern gospel and spirituals. Old-time and American folklore music forms include Appalachian, Cajun, Creole, and the cowboy western music styles of New Mexico, Red Dirt, Tejano, and Texas country. Its popularized roots originate in the southern and southwest United States in the early 1920s. Country music often consists of ballads and dance music, most commonly known as honky-tonk music, with generally simple forms of folk lyrics and harmonies, often accompanied by string instruments such as electric and acoustic guitars, steel guitars such as pedal steels and dobros, banjos and fiddles, as well as harmonicas. Blues modes have been used extensively throughout its recording. So when I was looking up a description, country just wasn't that interesting, so I decided to go with country music instead. Yeehaw.
Yeehaw. Yee.
Yee. I did think it was interesting though that like the idea of like a country music or a country music style didn't actually even start until like the 1920s.
Interesting.
Yeah, and its roots are literally just in basically the southern United States, and yet here we are in Alberta, Canada, the Yeehaw province of Canada. So there you go.
Unfortunately, yes.
Yeah. All right. Well, I am very excited to hear your story, Jen. I have no idea what you're going to cover. I'm sure it's going to be very crimey.
It is. Today we're talking about Bruce Jeffrey Pardoe, who was born in 1963 and lived in San Fernando Valley and was a graduate of John H. Francis Polytechnic High School in Sun Valley, Los Angeles, and California's State University Northridge. He worked at Jet Propulsion Laboratory as an electrical engineer, and in 2006, things were going great for him. He started the year on a great foot. He was engaged to his soon-to-be wife, Sylvia Ortega. They had a combined income of about $150,000 a year, a $500,000 home on a quiet cul-de-sac with their dog, Saki. They seemingly had a perfect life on the horizon together, and the couple was living in Covina, California, which has a population of 46,496 in 2008, which is rural-ish. It's rural adjacent, I would say. It's a smaller city for sure.
Yeah.
Not quite country, but close enough. Yeah, they were close. Close enough. So his soon-to-be bride, Sylvia, was born in 1965. She was always interested in business and took a job as a secretary out of high school. When Sylvia was around 23 years old, the father of her two oldest children was killed in a car crash in Arizona. She was a widow for many years until she married George Orza, whom she apparently met through work. The couple had one daughter together, but her and George later divorced. Sylvia then met Bruce in 2004, and at first their marriage seemed ideal. He lived alone in a sparsely furnished house, which describes every single man I know. You know, one couch in the middle of an empty room.
Basically, with like one cup.
Yeah, they got one cup, one bowl, and a couch, and a bed on the floor, and they're like, this is great.
No, one chair. They don't even need a couch.
True. So she had 3 children and plenty of furniture, so it seemed like a good match. The couple wed in January 2006, but soon grew apart after their marriage when Bruce refused to open a joint account with Sylvia. He expected his wife to take care of her own 3 children and her own finances. The marriage began further disintegrating when Sylvia discovered that Bruce had abandoned a brain-damaged son years ago, but continued to claim him as a tax write-off. This child was severely injured in a swimming pool accident several years prior. He did not support this child, nor did he pay any support to his ex-wife and her children. And so Sylvia found that out, and she did not love that.
That's fair. That feels like a good reason to be mad.
I would also be mad. In June 2008, the couple was in the midst of a nasty divorce after just 1 year of marriage, and divorce court had ordered Bruce to pay $1,785 a month in spousal support. During the divorce proceedings, Bruce had confided to a friend his wife was, quote, taking him to the cleaners. In July, Bruce was fired from his job as an electrical engineer at ITT Electronic Systems, Radar Systems, for billing false hours, and the court suspended the support payments due to his job hardship. Bruce was required to pay Sylvia $10,000 as part of the divorce settlement, according to court documents. Sylvia kept the wedding ring and the family dog, and in a court declaration, Bruce complained that Sylvia was living with her parents, not paying rent, and had spent lavishly on a luxury car, gambling trips to Las Vegas, meals at fine restaurants, massages, and golf lessons. Which, I kind of get where he's coming from, but also it's her money, so why does it matter to him if she's living with her parents?
Yeah, if somebody else has their own job and they're spending their money on the things that they want to spend on, I'm not really sure if there's a reason to be mad about that.
Literally, you're gonna owe her the money regardless of how she spends it, so yeah. I don't know what the point is there, but whatever. Men be men.
Men be men.
By the fall of 2008, the couple appeared before the judge to finalize their divorce agreement. Bruce was depressed and he had lost his wife, his job, his dog, and he asked the judge in his divorce case to have his ex-wife pay him support and cover his attorney fees. 1 week later, it was Christmas Eve, and as you can imagine, Bruce was not in a good headspace. Bruce put on a Santa suit and headed over to his former in-laws' house where they were hosting a family get-together for Christmas Eve with about 25 people in attendance. At approximately 11:30 p.m., Bruce dressed up as Old St. Nick, knocked on the door of Alicia and Joseph Ortega, who were Sylvia's parents, with a gift wrap package containing a rolling air compressor converted to deliver gasoline from it and at least 4 9mm semi-automatic handguns.
This doesn't feel like it's in the spirit of Christmas.
I mean, he's wearing a Santa suit. He's here to give him something.
It's a strong lead. Not sure about the rest of it, though.
Yeah, me either. Moments after the door opened, Bruce pulled out the handguns and immediately shot his former 8-year-old niece, Katerina, who ran to greet him, injuring her in the face. Katerina was the daughter of Sylvia's sister, and then he fired indiscriminately at fleeing partygoers. Police speculate that Bruce may have stood over and pointedly executed some of the victims using other handguns, and after the shootings, Bruce unwrapped the package containing the compressor and used it to spray gasoline to set the home ablaze. 9 people died from either gunfire or flames, and 3 others were wounded. Katerina was shot in the face with severe but non-life-threatening injuries, a 16-year-old girl shot and wounded in the back, and a 20-year-old woman who suffered a broken ankle jumping out a second-floor window. One survivor escaped during the attack and ran to a neighbor's house where they called the authorities. The resulting fire soared approximately 40 to 50 feet high and took 80 firefighters an hour and a half to extinguish. So that was a big fire.
That's a hell of a lot of gasoline. Holy.
So, due to the intensity of the fire, identification of the victims was done with dental and medical records because their bodies were in such bad shape.
That's upsetting.
So, at least 3 of the victims were caused by gunshot wounds alone, while 4 others died from a combination of both gunshot and fire. 2 other deaths stemmed from the fire alone, and at least 13 children were orphaned after the massacre, and 2 others lost one parent. The victims included Bruce's ex-wife Sylvia, who died, both of Sylvia's parents, Alicia and Joseph, Sylvia's 17-year-old nephew, Michael Andrea Ortiz, and 5 of the brothers and sister-in-laws, Charles Ortega, Sherry Lynn Ortega, James Ortega, Teresa Ortega, and Alicia Ortega Oritz. So after setting the home on fire, Bruce put his street clothes and drove to his Dodge Caliber rental car to his brother's house in Slamar, which was about 30 miles away from the crime scene, where he was later found dead from a self-inflicted gunshot wound. His brother was not present in the home at the time of Bruce's suicide. It was initially believed that Bruce intended to flee to Canada by plane since he had bought an airline ticket for a flight on Air Canada. However, it was subsequently discovered that the flight itinerary on Northwest Airlines was from Los Angeles to Illinois with a layover in Minnesota. Bruce had called days before to tell a high school friend that he was planning to visit, but investigators were unsure if he actually intended to visit or if the flight was to fool investigators. He had visited the friend before in October 2008, and other reports stated that the Santa suit had melted during the flamethrower portion of the attack and had adhered to his skin, so not all of it could be removed. However, suffering from severe third-degree burns on his arms stemming from the blaze, Bruce decided to go against his initial plan. Police found $17,000 in cash cling-wrapped to his legs inside a girdle. His rental car, parked 1 block from his brother's house, had remnants of his Santa suit. Also recovered from the scene were 4 13-round capacity handguns that were empty and at least 200 rounds of ammunition, suggesting that what had been inside the car was being treated as a threat. A bomb squad, while attempting to remove a portion of the Santa suit with a robot, accidentally started a fire in the vehicle, burning it and destroying it. At Bruce's house in Montrose, police had recovered 5 empty boxes for semi-automatic handguns, tactical shotgun, and a container for high-octane fuel tank gasoline. They also found what was described as a virtual bomb factory in his home. Police speculate that the motive of the attack was related to marital problems, and Bruce had no prior criminal record or history of violence.
Now, see, that is really spooky. I don't know what it is about, like, crimes where they don't have any previous history of violence and then they do something as horrific as this. Like, very spooky.
It is, because it's just like, this man was just, like, sitting dormant, but clearly he was, like...
Had some problems, for sure, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Don't like it.
Ooh, that... No, that's a bad one.
Yes, it is, and that's the end of my deal for you today.
Oh, all right. That, just always, they're always bad. And with this one, it just seems to be getting worse. I mean, I'm glad they caught him, especially after all that, but, like, yeah, no, just to do something so horrific, like, out of the blue, basically, I don't know. Like I said, it doesn't sit well with me. But on a slightly lighter note, my story for you today is I'm going over some of the mythical creatures and legends that pertain to the Albertan countryside.
Ooh, that's fun.
Yes. So we're going to take a little dive into the Alberta creatures and that sort of thing, because we come from Alberta, and Alberta is also known for having a lot of countryside, so this felt like it would be a nice little relevant bite-sized piece of information to share with you all.
All right, well, take her away, Em.
All right, so just in the spirit of our worldly listeners, since I know that most people aren't from Canada, I'll let you know a little bit about the place where we come from. So Alberta is one of 10 provinces and 3 territories that make up the nation of Canada. It is the 6th largest province or territory at 848 square kilometers. It's slightly smaller than Myanmar and has the 4th most populace with a little more than 4 million people and has very diverse geography. We have prairie, desert, forest, lakes. We have over 600 lakes in the province of Alberta. Glaciers, mountains, and we also include a big part of the Canadian Rockies as well, so the Rocky Mountains. Alberta was a territory until 1905. The province produces about 79.2% of the country's oil, 59.6% of Canada's feeder cattle, and averages about $6.1 billion in wood production each year. 2 Canadian professional hockey teams play in Alberta, the Edmonton Oilers and the Canadian Flames, as do the Canadian Football League's Calgary Stampeders and Edmonton Eskimos. The Calgary Stampede is one of the top rodeos in the world, and famous people from Alberta include Calgary Stampede founder Guy Wiedeck, aviator and founder of Wardair Airlines Maxwell Max William Ward, Calgary's first citizen Samuel Livingston, the first woman elected to the Canadian legislature, Louise McKinney, actors Tommy Chong, Nathan Fillion, Michael J. Fox, and Fay Ray, professional wrestler Bret the Hitman Hart, musicians Joni Mitchell, K.D. Lang, and the group Nickelback. So basically, like I said, this is Alberta. Welcome to the idea of this place that we are from. And I'm now going to tell you a little bit more about these creatures that kind of prowl around this here province that you and I live in.
I'm excited. I didn't realize we had so many freaking lakes. Holy.
I know. Well, a lot of them too are, because I literally had the same thought as you, and then I went on like a little like hunt to be like, where are these lakes? It's because we have regions of wetland, so a lot of them are condensed within these wetlands where they have like smaller lakes that all kind of tie in together, but then they are still their own individual water sources. So they still count as their own lake, but they're in wetland communities.
Interesting. Well,
Isn't it?
let's get into the spooky creatures that are in the countryside.
Yes, because there are for sure a few that I don't think you've even heard of before, even while doing this podcast. So, but there will be a couple that you've heard of just because it is who I am. But the first one I'm going to share with you is a creature called the Kinusu. So, with a surface area of about 373 square kilometers and a depth of 99.1 meters, Cold Lake, which, do you know what Cold Lake, where approximately Cold Lake is?
Yes.
Yes. So for our listeners, it's kind of in the area of Edmonton, which is kind of like mid-north Alberta, but Cold Lake is closer to Saskatchewan. And it is one of the largest and deepest lakes in Alberta, and is split between the Alberta and Saskatchewan border. The lake features recreational sports, including fishing and boating. The early Chippewan First Nations people called the lake Big Fish Lake, and although it was the Cree First Nations title of Coldwater Lake that gave the body of water its current today name. And it was also the local First Nations tribes that gave the settlers in the area the original story of the great fish Kinusu. So, according to local legend, a young First Nations man often paddled a canoe near the shores of the lake to visit a young woman that he had hoped to marry. Although sticking near the shores was a safer way to travel over the turbulent lake, one night when the winds were low, the young man decided to cut across French Bay while he was attacked. But then he was attacked. An enormous fish rushed his boat and bit it in two, and pulled the man to his death, all while the woman he had hoped to marry watched helplessly from the far shore. The only thing that remained of him for the next day was a paddle and pieces of the broken canoe. So people, when they found this situation that had happened, named the thing that attacked them the Kinosu. And we haven't had a sighting again of the Kinosu since then.
Fitting that a giant fish just chomped a man.
Right? In the middle of Cold Lake. So there's a fun one.
Should we go and find it?
Yeah, right? So the next one you for sure heard about, it's the Windy Boys. I will not say their actual name on the podcast because I'm just not going to put that energy out there. But if you want to search up the name of what they're actually called, you can just type in Skinwalker into Google, and it will give you the actual First Nations name of what this creature is. So, I will get into it. Fort Kent, which is a tiny town 32 kilometers south of Cold Lake, has its own story of a monster. So, tales of the Fort Kent Windy Boy begin in the 1870s when farm animals begin to disappear from around Fort Kent, and then the farmers started to disappear. So according to First Nations legends across North America, the Windy Boys are creatures that were once men who had succumbed to the whims of an evil spirit and resorted to cannibalism. A Windy Boy appears as a tall, furry, emaciated creature with bones pushing out of its skin. They usually have glowing red eyes and can have the head of a deer. The story of the Fort Kent Windy Boy began when the Cree Indian trapper Swift Runner, which I shared the story of Swift Runner previously on the podcast. I think it was the spring of last year. But I tell more of the story of Swift Runner then. But basically, for today, just for to tie it in, Swift Runner had returned alone to the area from his winter camp. In this story, although his family had gone to camp with him, Swift Runner explained that his wife killed herself and his children starved to death. So then when the Northwest Mounted Police, which also known as the RCMP, or the Mounties, forced Swift Runner to lead them to his camp. They found the remains of the trapper's family, with evidence that they had been butchered. Swift Runner then admitted to eating his own family and blamed the horror on the spirit of a Windy Boy. He was then tried for the murders of his family and sentenced to hang. Swift Runner was executed at Fort Saskatchewan, Alberta on the 20th of December, 1879. So whether the spirit of a Windy Boy possessed Swift Runner or he had simply succumbed to a ravenous hunger during the winter, it's kind of debatable. However, if it was a Windy Boy, the spirit didn't leave the tiny town of Fort Kent. So, this one I haven't told you about. Smallpox hit the same town, Fort Kent, in 1921 and decimated the already small population and overwhelming the town doctor named Thomas Burton. When Burton's wife died during the outbreak, he ate her. After that, he started to eat more people.
What?
And once
he ate her?
He ate his wife. And then, because there wasn't anybody there, like, everybody was gone, they were out of food, he was the doctor, and then his wife passed away, he decided to eat her. After that, wasn't enough, he continued to eat people, the residents that he was caring for. And once he was out of readily dead people, so people who had passed away from smallpox, he began killing living town residents for food. When the few remaining townsfolk confronted the doctor, he then fled into the forest and was never seen again.
I don't like that at all.
No, so I thought that one was super interesting because when I did cover the story of Swift Runner last time, they never mentioned that there was also another cannibalistic man who was from the same area as Swift Runner.
Yeah. That doesn't sit right. The fact that he's like, you know what? The next logical thing, eat my wife.
See, I think you definitely have to be like a certain kind of person to get to that conclusion. And it's, but like another
hope.
weird, yeah, right. But another weird twist to Windy Boys is that, generally speaking, in First Nations like folklore in different communities and whatnot, usually if there's one Windy Boy, they do say there's always usually more than one, because one will bring the evil spirits to the area, and then more Windy Boys will then start to appear because of it.
Spooky. That's definitely one of the more well-known ones here in these parts, and I think you can tell by the way Emily's talking about it that this one spooks her to her core.
Yeah, personally, I come from a really strong farming background, and there's just certain things that, like, we don't do. And I'm like, even if, like, this is something I actually have to be worried about or not, it's the same thing as, like, using a Ouija board. I am not somebody who's like, I will invite the bad vibes into my life. There's already enough of those without doing certain things, so I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing. It seems to be working out so far.
Fair enough. She don't want to talk about the Windy Boys.
No Windy Boys here. But yes, so that is, that particular side of it, which, as you said, is kind of a more popular, or at least well-known story in Alberta. But the next one is one called The Dog Man. So, legends of bipedal dogs stretch across North America, and Alberta is no exception. Researcher Ronna L. Anderson told the Edmonton Examiner of a reported werewolf-like two-legged dog running across the road in front of a car. It had the shoulders of a man and the head and the face of a dog, with very, very short hair which was almost gray in color, Anderson told the Examiner. The monster, or something similar, has actually been seen in that area before as well. It's been described as standing 6 feet tall with short fur that ends in a long bushy tail. And besides the fact that it stands on 2 legs, the Dogman's most frightening characteristic that has been mentioned from people who've seen it is that it has human hands.
Ooh. That's unsettling. I don't like the image of just a dog man with human hands.
Yes, so the Dogman is, so I was looking to see kind of like what area exactly the sightings come from. It's in and around Edmonton area.
I'll be avoiding that from now on.
Yeah, so I was like, thank goodness I am nowhere near that place, for many reasons.
I don't want to go there anyway.
I have no desire to be in that area. But yes, so that is the Dogman. And then next one is also a very popular Alberta story that I'm sure that if I let you guess, you would come across it eventually, because I'm going to tell you a little bit about Bigfoot in Alberta, okay?
Oh boy.
Yes, so Jenny is literally rolling her eyes right now because the Bigfoot is one of those things where the closer you get to the mountains, the more signs you see about, like, from people who are like, keep an eye out for Bigfoot. It's like a super huge thing here. I cannot say myself that I've ever seen one. But it seems to be something that people are very passionate about in Alberta. So I'm going to share with you a little tidbit about the Bigfoot.
It's true. The people who are passionate about Bigfoot are really passionate about Bigfoot.
It's a big deal. There's a TV show. It's like they get into it. It's big stuff. So for us, people have seen Bigfoot throughout Canada, in 49 of the 50 United States as well. None in Hawaii. I wonder why.
He can't swim, that's why.
Not that far, I think. And I think if a Bigfoot or Big Feet were to try to get onto a ship, that might be noticeable. Other than Hawaii, Big Feet have been seen all over North America and sporadically in different places across the world as well. So the earliest report in Alberta is from the 7th of January in 1811, when David Thompson, a Northwest Company surveyor, saw something in the Rocky Mountains that he didn't quite understand. He wrote about it in his journal, and I have a snippet from what he wrote next. So what he said in his journal is, I saw the track of a large animal, has 4 toes, about 3 to 4 inches long, and a small nail at the end of each. The ball of his foot sinks about 3 inches deeper than his toes. The hinder part of his foot did not mark well. The hole is about 14 inches long and 8 inches wide, and very much resembles a large bear's track. It was in the rivulet in about 6 inches of snow. So, like, very, like, descriptive, but, like, in a very factual way. So this is, like, him documenting exactly what he saw, because he understands what different types of tracks from animals look like, and this is not one that he's familiar with. He then addressed the prince decades later in his memoirs again, where he says, we were in no humor to follow him. The men and the First Nations would have it to be a young mammoth, but I held it to be the track of a large old grizzly bear. Yet the shortness of the nails and the ball of the foot and the great in size were not that of a bear. Otherwise, it could have been a very large old bear, his claws worn away, but the First Nations people said that would not allow. Which, if I was to surmise what he said in, like, modern day speak, he's saying basically that, like, at the time when they saw the track, him and who was in his company weren't really all that interested in following it, these tracks, but he held on to his idea was that it was that of a large old grizzly bear, because he couldn't figure out why on earth the nails would have been so short, and there was just a couple other features that didn't quite make sense to him. But every time he said it, the First Nations people who had came with him were like, no, like, we know bear tracks. That is not a bear track. Not an old one, not a young one, not a bear that has an issue, not a bear track. And the First Nations people had said basically that they thought it to be the track of a mammoth, which is also interesting.
An interesting theory, for sure.
Right? I know. Either way, right? So very interesting. And people have since interpreted Thompson's descriptions of the track to not be from a bear, but from a Bigfoot. So this is kind of where we are now today, with, like, his description matching up with what people have seen since then. So basically, reports of the enormous, hairy, ape-like human have continued across the decades. According to the Alberta Sasquatch Organization website, there have been at least 87... I know. There have been at least 87 Bigfoot reports in the province since the 1940s. One Alberta man is so serious about the existence of the creature that he sued the state of California and plans to sue Alberta next. I'm just going to let that sink in.
For our American listeners, I just want to let you know, suing people is not as much of a thing here as it is there. That's not
normally.
Not what we do here. We don't really sue people that often.
Yeah, that's, like, just not something that comes across our table very often. And when it does, it seems just a little extra. So, basically, Todd Standing of Edmonton, director of the documentary Discovering Bigfoot, which was made in 2017, has established a group that has filed a lawsuit for the American state to recognize the reality of the creature. We're going in with PhDs, with wilderness experts beyond myself, with wildlife biologists, with fingerprint experts, and we are going to prove, so beyond a reasonable doubt, that this species exists, Standing told Canada's Global News. When we provide that we are successful, the species will be recognized as an indigenous wildlife species, and then fish and wildlife in California, in Canada, in the United States, everywhere. This group claims to possess Sasquatch DNA samples that will definitely prove its existence. Half my evidence is from Alberta, Standing told Global News, and I've had lots of my success in Alberta.
At least there's that.
At least there's that, and that is our Bigfoot. So, Alberta, lots of creatures, mostly Bigfoot and Windy Boys, from what we can tell so far, right?
Yep, that's what I'm hearing.
Right? I do have a wild card, though, for you next, okay? So, next, I have the hyena.
That's a real animal.
I know, just hear me out. So,
Like,
stories...
the mythical hyena.
The mythical hyena. But basically, stories of hyena-like creatures in North America are not as uncommon as they should be. This wouldn't be surprising if we were like in the Pliocene epoch, when the giant hyena Chasma Portheus roamed the land, but the time is now, and dinosaurs basically don't really exist anymore. And so, for example, the hyena that would have been the North American hyena has been extinct for 780,000 years, which is like a long time. And the descriptions of the big dog-like creatures also suggest a dire wolf, which the North American dire wolf, they have found fossils of those, which died out 9,440 years ago. There's also been a hyena-like dog called the Borophagine, which died at about 2.5 million years ago, or the much longer extinct Hyanodon, which died out 23 million years ago. Okay, so from what we can hear so far is that the idea of hyenas in North America may have at one point been like a real thing, but since they have so many fossils of extinct creatures that would be considered hyena-esque, it's been a very long time.
Yeah, they dead.
They're like not here. Yeah. Super dead, super long time, super not here. Okay? Very much established. But whatever the improbability, historic possibilities of cryptid canine signings in Canada and the United States, the name it goes by in Iowa First Nations folklore is the Shunka Warakan, which is known as the carries off dog. So basically, there are stories from First Nations people of a Shunka Warankin, which is a hyena-like creature in Canada. So basically, Canada, United States, North America, and it's a today thing. So, although the Shunka Warankin is best known for the creature shot by a rancher named Israel Almond Hutchins in 1896 in Montana, it has also been seen in the bordering province of Alberta. So now we're like in southern Alberta, okay? So the most notable Alberta sighting was near the small town of Legal, just north of Edmonton. Oh, I guess even in Edmonton. I thought this one was totally in the south. Just north of Edmonton in 1991, several people saw a creature that resembled a hyena pacing near the entrance to a park. So the Shunka Warankin is a First Nations name for a hyena, and that's just basically what it is. It's literally a creature described to be a hyena. Nothing else too crazy. But for something that's supposed to be extinct in North America, it's been seen in Montana and Alberta even as recent as 1991.
I feel like it escaped from one of those like backwoods American zoos, like Joe Exotic Zoo.
An Alberta and Joe
and
Exotic.
And just like hitched it to Edmonton.
See, though, my thing, though, I was like, when I was reading this and I was like, okay, so hyenas extinct in North America, there's been sightings of hyenas. My thought is like, of course it would be like just like a random thing seen in Alberta, because Alberta's a little notorious for people seeing like UFOs, Windy Boys, Bigfoots, and then random creatures all the time. So I was like, of course this pans out. But I would not be surprised if it's like an Albertan Joe Exotic. I feel like that would really be like that would sell it for me.
Yeah. I feel like that's the most likely situation. Joe Exotic opened up a shop here in Alberta, and he had hyenas. They got loose, and he didn't want to tell anyone because he didn't want to get in trouble.
Literally.
So everyone's like, "There's fucking extinct hyenas here," and he's like, "No one's gonna know."
Yeah, and then they're like, we've heard of them before. Here's this other random story. Yes, I am on the same page as you for this one.
Joe Exotic Zoo, aka the Edmonton Zoo.
Basically. And yeah, that basically concludes my fun little country criminal activity story for you.
Perfect. Should we spin the wheel for our topic for next week then?
We should. All right, let's get it. It looks like next week we're doing Nightmare Before Christmas crimes. Ooh, exciting.
Ooh. That is exciting. Have you watched that movie yet this year?
No. I don't watch it normally because I'm not. I don't really like it. I'm not. I'm not a fan, which seems to be very controversial for some reason. I'm not sure. I have seen the movie before, but it's not one of my favorites, so I don't see it that often.
Honestly, that's fair. I haven't watched it yet this year either. It's one of those that I could watch it or I could not. It's not like one of my must watches.
Yeah, I think what ruined it for me was knowing people while growing up who made The Nightmare Before Christmas their entire personality. Yeah, that really killed it for me. It's a sweet enough movie though, and I can understand why people would like it, but it's not my vibe. But yes, as for story wise though, I'm very curious to see what we're going to come up with. This will be very interesting.
Yes, but I think that wraps up our episode for today.
That it does. So if you like today's episode, you can let us know by leaving us a review on wherever you're listening to podcasts now. That would be Gucci. Love it. 5 stars. Say something nice, I hope. And then other than that, we also have our social media, which is Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok, if you want to check us out on those. We also have our email, which is wheelofcrime@gmail.com, if you want to email us and say really anything you like. We love hearing from you guys. We also have our Patreon, which is Wheel of Crime at Patreon. And you can check us out there if you want to donate to the show and get a little something for your efforts. That would be neat. And we also have our website, which is www.wheelofcrime.com if you want to check us out there and learn a little bit more about us, the hosts of the show. Also, we do have our Christmas listener story submission still open in Google. There you can see the link on our Instagram and all that if you want to submit a story. And besides that, I think that's basically everything.
Yes, that's it. That's all. We'll see you next week for another festive episode. Okay, bye.
Bye.